Hey there, Niner Faithful, Ninernut here with episode 61. Exhale, long sigh, talking about last week's horrible loss to the Rams, 27-24 in LA, a game in which that they had pretty much put away in the bag, in their hands, and same thing 2 weeks in a row, didn't come through when they needed to. And once again, it ended in a loss. So I guess the question really is what is going on there? Because while it's not time for panic right away, it's I think it's a good time to really question what happened in that game, especially if you didn't watch it and you were kind of just getting the updates or just getting, I guess, some of the highlights. It didn't do it any justice because going into that game, the Rams were decimated. No Puka Nakua, no Cooper Cup. Matt Stafford had been banged up a little bit a couple of weeks ago. And it's a Rams team, again, that I think is underrated with a great coach, with, um, a second year of them really trying to reach back to where they used to be with the limitations of not having the same roster they had when they won the Super Bowl in terms of, Aaron Donald and, various other plays that they had. But this is a talented team. I mean, Kyrie and Williams, we saw take off last year doing damage. Cooper Cup, obviously, Cooper Cup recuperating. Say that a couple times. Back to what he was 2 years ago, right? And Puka Nakua continuing on his unreal rookie season. So it's a team, again, that I think that is underrated heavily. They were heavily underrated last year. They had themselves a good year. But again, coming into this season, especially as the season grew closer, things were looking a lot different for them. I mean, they traded Ernest Jones over to Tennessee. Ernest Jones had himself a phenomenal season last year as a Ram. I mean, over 100 tackles by far. Every game, it's all you heard. So he was one of the young guns that they had back there, in there rather. And for some reason or another, he didn't want to be part of their team no more. I guess he wasn't going to get a bag, wasn't going to get a pay, whatever the case may be. But going into this game, I thought we were either going to blow them off the field or at least win the damn game. And we were winning this game for most part. Everything was looking typically like a basic 49ers formula, running the ball well early on with Jordan Mason. I think he had 70 yards on the ground. His third game that he looked really well. He probably could have had over 100 if they would have kept running the ball. Juwan Jennings, game of his career, right? I mean, highlight reel like you wouldn't believe, going off. Brock Purdy having another phenomenal game, doing it without GK, doing it without Deebo, doing it without Chris McCaffrey. So anybody, I don't hear anyone talking shit about how he needs all these studs around him to win. Come see me because you're way off, or go watch the game. Had himself a game running the ball. Go back and watch the highlights from that game and watch Mr. Purdy scramble. Holy shit, that one segment where he held out the ball to get the first down. I posted the picture with a little bit of a Superman song in it. Legit. Again, he's dialed in big time, okay? But going into that game, it should have been a win. It's a divisional game. I keep saying we were better than the Rams when they won the Super Bowl. Anyway, going into this game, we led halfway through the game altogether. What happened? Let's see. Well, obviously there were a couple things. Ronnie Bell, there were 6 drop passes altogether. Ronnie Bell had a bunch of them. And I'm sure his drop is out there now. I know I've seen various people post it. He was wide open, naked, man. He was streaking. He was so naked, dropping that ball. I'll tell you the truth. And I mean this, and I don't mean this to be harsh. Ronnie Bell shouldn't even be on the team. I wasn't big on him in preseason. He was dropping passes against the Tennessee Titans in that game. I didn't like what I was seeing. Just looked like he never got to the next level. Shouldn't even be there, man. Okay? I don't know why Chris Conley wasn't playing more. He's a veteran. He should be there, okay? So that's one thing. Another thing is we didn't really utilize the tight end position, although Eric Saubert caught 2 passes, I think. But for the most part, he was sitting back there, I guess, blocking. But that obviously was a big chunk of something, too, because it took away not having Kittle and not having a tight end that I think, could really replicate, although it's very hard to do what Kittle can do, didn't help. So we take away from the tight end, and now we're focusing basically on just receivers and backs. Another thing, and I'm always objective. I'm always going to call it like it is, as much as I love Coach Shanny. I'm going to keep saying it till it gets done. I don't know why we still don't use Jusek more out of the backfield catching the ball, man. That was a big part of his career early on, and we're not doing it. I still don't get it, especially in a game like this. I know we need him back there to block, but we need to put more package together where we dump him the ball, man. Especially now, if you're not going to have Deebo, especially if Kittle is, a little bit banged up, and if Ayuk isn't really where he's supposed to be just yet. So it only makes things better. It only makes things better. Plus, I thought we were going to see Jordan Mason being utilized out of the backfield more as a receiver as well. And on that note, I don't know why we're not using Isaac Garriendo to carry the ball more. And on that note, let me just say another thing I had against last week's loss was you didn't run the ball enough. You stopped running the ball. In the end of the third quarter to the fourth, you stopped running the ball. And I don't understand why. Now, the offensive line, for the most part, played better than they had in the recent 2 weeks where they've given up, I think, 9 sacks altogether. 2 weeks back-to-back, first and second, they gave up a total of 8. Okay? This past week, they gave up 1, much better, but it's still not where it needs to be. There's a lot of people who were down on Jake Brendel, and obviously there are a lot of people who were down on Connor McKivitz, okay? Which I could totally understand because he had a terrible penalty last week again, and I'm questioning if we need to solidify that position a lot more at right tackle, and I think we do. So as a whole, that's just the offensive side of the ball. I don't think this team is where they're supposed to be, and that's okay because we've seen this before from San Francisco. We've seen this before, and it takes a couple weeks. Even last year, man, with the luck we had last year, I still thought that we weren't where we needed to be until we started to gel somewhat towards the middle of the season, and that's okay. That's what happens with a lot of good teams. Some teams come out the gate banging, like the Buffalo Bills this year and the Kansas City Chiefs, and some teams take a little bit. So this is a long race. It's the turtle over the hare, I think, for sure. But let's concentrate on what else happened. Defensive side of the ball, Devondre Campbell having trouble covering wide receivers. Big time. Getting smoked. That's concerning. Okay? Stupid penalties last week. Devondre Campbell had 1. McKivitz had 1. There were some bad calls in the game, of course. Once again, go back and watch the highlight reel. How many times and count Nick Bosa was being held. You'll find it was ridiculous. But it's no excuse, man. Go down by the goal line. I put up a video breaking down the Kyren Williams touchdown. I think it was the second one where he flipped in the air, which was really impressive, man. Go look where the defense went. Hargrave went one way. The gap was wide open. That Whittington, number 88, came in, used as a fullback, came through, blocked, wide open. I mean, I got my hat off to the Rams and McVay. Our defense played like shit. That's the truth. The defense has not looked good at all. Now, obviously, we're going to be without Javon Hargrave for the rest of the season, which is a big loss. But I'll tell you this much. In the first 3 games of the season so far, the defense, other than Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and Deommodore Lenoir, I don't think really have showed too much. Now, maybe it's just them getting situated with themselves. Maybe it's the new coordinator. I don't know, whatever it is. But we're not looking too good, man. Against the Jets, we looked all right, but I don't go much by that because the Jets really weren't where they're supposed to be, of course, yet. So these last 2 weeks, especially against Minnesota, I didn't like what I saw against the defense, man. The run game does not look good. We're getting beat um, by running backs. The offensive lines are pushing us back. So I'm starting to wonder what's going on with that defensive front. Now, Malik Collins has looked pretty good. Kevin Givens hasn't looked bad. He's always been a serviceable defensive tackle. Haven't seen enough out of Leonard Floyd. Okay. So again, it's concerning, man. And of course, not having big play Dre there it hurts. But I expected a lot more. I know Campbell. I think Campbell's a very good side to side linebacker, tackles, that type, but covering wide receiver is just not his forte. And of course, that's never easy. But I'm wondering if they're going to have to change things up a little bit and just go, one linebacker and then go with, five defensive backs or something. Because if this keeps up, it's only going to lead to trouble. You can't keep hemorrhaging um, receiving yards, especially to running backs out of the backfield. You can't keep having a linebacker that can't cover a running back or another receiver or a tight end out of the backfield. I mean, it's just a hole in the defense, and that wasn't the case last year. We also need a lot more pressure on quarterbacks. We're not generating enough sacks. And again, I don't know. Maybe we'll see different today against New England. I hope so, because obviously, New England not looking too good. Not expected much out of them this year. They're banged up as it is too. They don't really have a stud wide receiver whatsoever. So they really kind of play that boring type of offense. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Drake May come in there today. I don't know. I don't think it's going to matter because I think it's definitely a victory for us. Jake Moody misses a field goal, right, against the Rams. Clutch. Not once, but twice. We saw him do it against Kansas City. We saw him do it last week. Now, look, for the most part, Moody's been a solid kicker all season long. What was he opening night? 4 of 4, 5 of 5, whatever. But it all comes down to the clutch with all these guys, with all these kickers, right? It all comes down to the clutch. The best always, for the most part, nail those big kicks, and he hasn't done it. He didn't do it. Someone said it wasn't his fault. I don't even know what that means. I don't know. Is this like a whole Ray Finkel thing? The laces were out. I doubt it. Point being, he's taking over for the great Robbie Gould, and I wish we had Robbie Gould right now. That's nothing against Jake Moody. That's just my opinion, man. I never wanted to get rid of Robbie Gould to begin with, but I really hope this doesn't become a problem with him. Special teams looks like shit. Let's call it like it is. 2 weeks in a row, special teams looks like shit. Okay? Last week, Wishnowski gets a punt blocked. This week, we give up, I don't know, what was that return at the end to that rookie on the Rams? 50 yards, which put them in a position to easily take the game back from us. Agent 111 Adrian, you're 100% right. Cool as gold, brother. You ain't kidding. I miss him, man. I miss him. So there's a lot of things right now that aren't looking too good. But again, it's like I've been saying this. It's early in the season. It's okay. I don't like it. I don't mind it. It's not obviously a reason to panic. I know everybody in their mind, whether they're not Niner fans, obviously, they're all calling. Is it unraveling? Is it panicking? I hear it all the time. When you're a Niner fan, it's not unraveling. It's not. We're not there yet. People are putting up that stupid video about Ayuk and Shanahan fighting. Okay, no one knows what really was going on there. You can't hear any feedback. And, of course, you're never going to hear what really went on because that's interpersonal to the team and the players. It looks one way. It could have been another way. Who knows what went on? They could have been talking about anything. Did it look a certain way? Yeah, it did. But let's relax with that, okay? When it comes to Ayuk, a lot of people are, he got his bag. None of that is true. Okay, even he said recently how defensive backs are covering him different. Yeah, that's going to happen because they know he's a legit wide receiver. Do we all want to see more out of him? Of course. But I'm sure it'll happen. It's just let's give it some time. And, the more healthy they are as a team altogether, obviously we're going to see, hopefully, the best out of them, right? Because it's been pieces and parts the last couple of weeks. They lose Deebo, they lose GK, they were out McCaffrey. So it's obviously going to happen. They also came into this season a little limited with the linebacker position. So again, I thought Devondre Campbell. I still think he's a good linebacker. I just think that he needs to, change things up a notch, or they need to change things up a notch in certain packages and whatnot. The defensive backfield hasn't played great either, other than Diamador Lenore. And I thought I was happy to see Huffanega back last week. I thought he looked pretty good coming back from that knee injury. Yeah, exactly, man. I agree with you. I agree. It's only a matter of time till they link up, man. It's only a matter of time till Ayuk and Purdy link up. Shavarius Ward was banged up a little bit last week. He looks like he's not his best yet. So there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going on there. Obviously, a lot of people, certain people, was wondering, questioning Sorensen. I don't think we're at that point at all yet. It's 3 games. There's 14 games to go. This is a slow process. If this starts to unravel, like a loss today, which is not going to happen, does happen, then I would really start to be worried. Okay, because you're losing to the Patriots. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's going to happen though. But it's early, and that's the good thing. There's times to there's times to get better. I think that's what this team has shown over the last couple of years, is that they really raise their game somewhat middle of the season as they start to gel. That's the way it's always been, especially here on the East Coast, where everything is more likely to be Jets, Giants, Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately, a lot of these shows, or a lot of shows in general, won't always show the progression of a team that's not in their city, or they're ignorant to that. And that's what we've seen, especially with Brock Purdy and the 49ers, especially now, how you don't hear any experts talking about the fact that he's doing everything, or did everything last week, without 3 of his starters, which was just a phenomenal game for him. And I know he has back soreness today. He is playing through, somewhat of an injury. So I hope everything works out well. Because again, listen, New England is what it's exactly what you expected. They're trying to rebuild. They're in the next generation of Patriots, trying to get to the next chapter, post Belichick, post Brady. So you're going to have to expect this, but that's no reason to take them lightly, and it's no reason to think that they're just going to take their foot off the brake. So I hope today, for a solid victory that allows for Ayuk to start to gel with Purdy, for more of the running game. I want to see more of Isaac Ariendo, right? And I want to see that defense pounce. I want to see the defense back to where they were. They left off on a threatening note. So far, they have been the ones who have been being taken advantage of. It looks like they're not attacking. Against the Jets, it did. Against Minnesota, it was sort of questionable. I think they caught them off their heels on that game. And last week, it just didn't look right. It looked like they never really had a grip on that game defensively. Yeah, man. I think the defense is the main concern right now, for sure, Agent. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. I'm worried about the fact that we're not generating enough pressure on quarterbacks other than Bosa. I'm wondering if Leonard Floyd is really situated to be a direct defensive end, or better off the end as a linebacker. I don't know. I really don't know. I want to see more out of Robert Beal too. I mean, this is, that kid, I heard so much about him coming out of college. Haven't seen enough of him at all. I always feel like I'm missing him when I watch a game. And then I go look in the stats. I'm like, oh, he had a tackle. I totally missed that because I didn't see it. I want to see more out of that Jordan Elliott, too, that they signed from Cleveland. He's a big old body. So I'm thinking with him and Malik Collins being up front at the defensive tackle position, while they may not be able to generate the sacks and the pressure that Javon Hargrave did, or when they had DeForest Buckner, who I really miss, I think that if they can solidify their position, taking on 1 and 2 blockers and stuffing the run, hopefully that will allow more pressure for Floyd and Bosa. Although, there's going to have to start to be the Bosa rule, where refs really watch the post-game film and tell me how many times he's being strangled. because this is ridiculous. Every week I must count 3, 4, and 5 times, and I'm probably being generous, man. I mean, give me a break. I don't see that for anybody else that goes on. And it's like after a while, and they got him moving up and down the line from the right to the left side, and it's happening all over. I mean, it's like, you, you know, I know there's holding on every play, but come on, this is getting ridiculous now. I mean, it's bad enough it happened in the Super Bowl. Now in the first 3 games against the Jets, I must have counted 50 times. Tyron Smith all but fucking strangled them, fucking Fatal Attraction Glenn Close style. Give me a fucking break. So it's getting ridiculous. But again, I'm today. Obviously, I think we'll get to see a lot more pressure because it's not a great New England team. So it's going to be one of those things where do you really base everything off of what we've seen this week? And obviously, you can't do that because you want to do that against better teams, whether it's the upcoming against Arizona or it's the upcoming Seattle. So I just want to fucking win. We just need a win this week. We need an old fashioned win. I want Shanny to just keep pounding Jordan Mason. Use Garendo. Please start throwing the ball more to Juice. Let's start generating a second tight end. Get over the Dwelly loss, which I think was obviously now we're seeing to some extent that he was a real valuable piece of manpower at the backup tight end or second tight end. I want to see more out of either Sauber or this Jake Tongs, whatever his name is. And I want to see more. Like it looked like to me in the third and fourth quarter last week that they just locked in on throwing the ball. There was no unique offensive strategy that Shanahan is just genius at. I mean, he called the gem game 1 against the Jets. He heavily outcoached Robert Saleh. Game 2, I didn't really have a problem with a lot of what went on with the calling the plays because Mason did have over 100. I thought they were blocking well up front. The offensive line had some trouble. They couldn't stop Pat Jones, who had 2 sacks. So I think it's a little bit of them, and I think it's a little bit of the defense. Those are the main parts. Individually, we got to see more out of certain guys. Like I said, Leonard Floyd, you got to see more of. You got to see more out of Devondre Campbell. You got to see more out of Shavarius Ward. Now that you got Huffanega back, it gives you an extra cushion back there. So these are the things I think we need to see more out of, and hopefully we will as time goes on. But obviously, you need to get healthy, too. Kittle's back today. Deebo's questionable. Obviously, McCaffrey went to Germany to get the stem cell shots. So, he's going to be out a little bit more with that Achilles tendonitis. I hope that doesn't carry over because look into that injury, if you will. It is very interesting, and it can be catastrophic if it's anything more than tendonitis, because as we all know, the Achilles injury or any injury down to that area is never the best, especially for him who's had that calf injury at that position for it seems to be lingering for a while. So while he's not here and recovering, hopefully we get to see more out of Mason. I mean, he's having a wonderful season, man. I think he's definitely got the talent in this offensive system to do damage. And I want to see Garendo between the tackles, doing the things that we need. And I want to see more Juice carrying the ball, too. I'd love to see that as well. And again, I get it. We saying these things aren't always what transfers over to the game plan. But, sometimes, look, like last week, you saw it unraveling. There was lack of pressure on Stafford when there should have been. We couldn't cover Tutu Atwell to save our lives. I don't know what was going on there. You weren't stuffing Kyren Williams. The goal line defense didn't look great last week. Again, I think it was just a case of them being back on their heels and just, that one segment, like I said, Hargrave went one way. The gap was wide open. You could have drove a snowmobile through there times 10. So I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that things have to really be adjusted. We're not turning the ball over. We didn't turn the ball over much. I think, what did we say? Gave up 1 sack last week. Purdy didn't throw any picks. I love the way he's running the ball. I like that element of him. It's another added element of his game, which is wonderful. But also, we got to protect him better, especially from the right side with McKivitz. I know it's a 1-year deal they re-signed him to, I believe. So obviously, I think that this is kind of a make or break year for him. They're going to kind of be looking into obviously solidifying that tackle position. But again, I think it's also could be just, things happened in the offseason. Williams was holding out, Ayuk was holding out. So maybe it's just a thing of, of them, enjoy, brother, in them not gelling yet. But anyway, breaking down some of that game from last week, let's just check out some stats. And again, it was not pretty, the end results. We all know that. 27-24, they lost to the Rams. This is the second loss in a row for them. Purdy had himself a game, like I said, 22 with 30, 292, 3 touchdowns, sacked once. What a rating of 137.1. Jordan Mason, 77 yards on 19 carries. Purdy, 41 yards on 10 carries. Should have kept running the ball with Mason. I'm going to keep saying it. Yeah, Garendo, 19 yards on 5 carries. Juwan Jennings, game of his career, 11 catches, 175, and 3 touchdowns. Listen, man. Juwan's legit. Brandonaiyuk, 5 catches, 48 yards, targeted 10 times. Defense wasn't letting him breathe much. Other than that, there wasn't much. Ronnie Bell had 1 catch. Eric Sauber, just it was ugly. Ronnie Bell shouldn't even be there. They did turn the ball over last week. Purdy, right? It was the McKivitz off the end. They knocked the ball out of Purdy's hand, causing a fumble. Not his fault. Shavarius Ward had 9 tackles. Still hasn't looked. He was last week. He was a little banged up. Talanoa Hufnagel, first game back, 7 tackles. Isaac Yadam, however you say it. His penalty was a backbreaker, bro. I mean, can't have that. Devondre Campbell having a real hard time covering wide receivers, had himself a penalty. Leonard Floyd, other than game 1, hasn't been much of a threat. Jair Brown had 4 tackles. Fred Warner had 4 tackles. When doesn't Fred Warner have tackles? I know he was a little banged up too. Like I said, Diamador Lenore, I thought he's looking great so far. It's going to hurt without Hargrave. Malik Collins looking good. We got a sack out of Sam Akinyono, who obviously will get a lot more playing time now with the injury to Javon Hargrave. So it just wasn't. It was an ugly loss. It should never have happened. It's one of those things, man. For the Rams, Stafford was 16 to 25 for 221. He didn't do anything great. Didn't do anything crazy. Williams, 89 yards on 24 carries, 2 touchdowns. He killed us. Tutu Atwell killed us, 93 yards on 4 catches. I mean, come on. And then on a defensive side for the Rams, we only gave up 1 sack. Their defense, obviously, they're somewhat in a rebuild state, I guess you could say, to some extent. Looking at some team stats here, just sliding this over. I think what really explains everything here is just, stat-wise, we were beating them left and right in certain areas. Third down efficiency, 6 of 11. It was better than it was 2 weeks ago, right? Total yards, 425 to 296. Yards per play, 6.5 to their 5.4. We were topping them in passing yards. Rushing yards, even there, 137 to their 98. We didn't give up 100. When we don't give up 100 on the ground, we mostly win. Penalties, too much, 7 for 111. And we saw a big chunk of those penalties towards the end, which was absolute bullshit. And possession, hour 33 minutes, 27 seconds to their 26 minutes and 33 seconds. So again, stat-wise, analytics, we win, but that's not the way it happened. Well, look, it's another week this week against New England. We're home. We need to win. End of conversation. So let's see what happens. If you're at the game, Much luck, respect, and love to you. I wish I was there. I'm on the East Coast. It's only 1:30, so I know it's earlier by you guys on the West Coast. I'm going to check out the Jets right now. And, of course, I'll be tuning in to watch the Niners whip the Patriots' ass. So let's just hope for the best. We need about 5 sacks. I want to see 2 interceptions. I'd like to see Aiyuk get going. I want to see Jawan Jennings continue. And we need a victory more than anything, right? So, all right. Peace out. Niner Nut here. Later.